All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Automating Data Lifecycle Management for Enterprise Analytics with Good Data and Witboost. I'm VP of Product Strategy, Ryan Dolley here at Good Data, and we have got an awesome conversation today all about how to manage your data products and automate your analytics really seamlessly with an integration that we've built with our partner Witboost. So I'm thrilled to talk about this. Before we get into it, a little bit of housekeeping. So first of all, welcome to the show. Attendees are muted upon entry, so you should be auto-muted. Don't worry about that. We do have a Q&A box. If you look at Zoom, you'll see the Q&A option down in the menu bar. We will be taking your questions over the course of the webinar. So get those questions in. We're going to do a little presentation. We'll have a demo for you, conversation about data product management, and integration with analytics. And then we'll answer your questions live at the end of the webinar. So get them in. If we don't answer your question, don't worry. We will respond via email if you've provided us with your email. So if you're leaving us a question and you do want us to answer it via email, of course, you have to give us your email or else we can't do that. And finally, a follow-up email with the recording will be sent in the next couple of days. So you can always watch this after the fact and share it with your friends and colleagues. And so let me go ahead and let's introduce our speakers. Of course, I'm Ryan Dolley, as I said, VP of Product Strategy, and I'm joined by Paolo, the CTO at Agile Lab and a product manager at Witboost. So welcome to the show here, Paolo. Just to give you kind of a brief agenda, we'll go talk about Good Data and Witboost and the integration that we've built, and then we will talk about the integration and do a live Q&A at the end. So why don't we get into it here? Paolo, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, hi to everybody. I'm Paolo Platter, CTO of Witboost, and also in charge of product management. Spent my entire career in data management, now in this adventure with Witboost, and happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So we'll do a little intro to Good Data and Witboost for those of you who are unfamiliar with us. So Good Data, we are one of the leading analytics platforms in the world. We particularly focus on kind of the emerging technologies and techniques around data product management, analytics engineering. We have a real engineering-focused analytics platform that is designed to help make you successful, by embracing automation and scale so that you're doing less manual work to build your analytics and really relying more on your ability to automate those outputs so that your team can do more faster with higher quality. That's ultimately what we're about here at Good Data. Paolo, why don't you give us a Witboost introduction?
Yeah, Witboost is a data product management platform, including data product lifecycle, data product governance, data product control plane, and also we have a data product marketplace. So Witboost has the goal of making the management of data products, real data products, easy for a large enterprise in order to be able to manage the life cycle of them through the whole value chain of the data products. Yeah.
Awesome. So just a reminder again, Q&A, get your questions in as we go through this. Paolo, I really want to start here by asking you, so Witboost is a data product management platform. And so the interesting thing, one of the interesting things about that is this idea of a data product. And I think there's a lot of debate in the industry right now. Okay, what is a data product? But there seems to be a broad recognition that this is a useful way to think about our data. So from Witboost's perspective and your perspective, how do you answer that question? What is a data product?
Yes, it's super hot topic. I think most of the people are confusing the way of thinking about the data as a product and the data product as an artifact that need to be created in order to go in that direction. So for me, the data product is a composition of infrastructure, data, metadata, and application software. So the data product is then generating the data, and the data must be governed, but the data product itself is a software artifact and must be managed along the whole life cycle of a software artifact. So this important distinction from a data set and a data product that is really confusing item, because many people are thinking to associate data set to data products, but in reality, the data product is the software application that is generating then and offering to the market the data. This is because it's the only way to have a real ownership end-to-end in managing the product with autonomy and independence, instead of relying on someone else to do the change management. Because if you need to engage other people to modify the data pipelines that are producing your data, you are not really in ownership. So, for example, data pipelines are part of the data product. So every kind of software artifact is managing the life cycle of the data should be part of the data product.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and helps explain why our two companies work together so well, because we have basically the same philosophy, just applied to the kind of the front end and the metrics layer of your analytics. How is managing, and you talked about this a little bit, but really people are probably pretty familiar with, data asset management and maybe traditional data catalogs that are used to manage tables. It seems like, that was the way we traditionally thought about our data. Is it exists in a number of tables in these relational databases, and then, we're going to have some sort of catalog that's going to keep track of the tables and what's in the tables, and maybe let people find the tables. That's not quite what we're talking about here. So how is data product management different from this traditional data asset management or table management approach?
Yeah, there is a substantial difference, because when you manage data asset, basically the data is already there, has been already produced, is already in production. So what you can do is to be reactive on what happens on the data. So you can polish the data with a bunch of metadata. You can add some data quality to observe what is happening in the data space. But then you can only be reactive. So when you detect a problem with the data, you need to engage someone else in order to start a change management cycle to fix the data. So instead managing the data product, it means that you are managing the whole life cycle that is including also the data management. Managing the entire life cycle, it means that you can intercept problems before they become a reality. So that you can intercept problems before the data is going into production. And this is a huge advantage in managing governance, data breach, and whatever it is. Also because it's raising awareness about what must be done to manage data in the proper way. So, for example, in data product management, you can check if people are building data quality controls, if people are making a metadata curation before the data is going in production. So it's anticipating a lot the issue detection and resolution before the data is becoming a reality. And it's the same that happened in software industry when we started to introduce unit testing, integration testing. The goal of all these practices is to anticipate the detection of problems before the software is shipped in production.
Yeah, that's brings me to what I think is probably one of the reasons why our companies work so well together and our platforms work so well together. And that is this idea of kind of software engineering. So um, this, in my opinion, these principles from software engineering are kind of late arriving to data, but they are arriving. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like these ideas of software engineering, these principles from software engineering, unit testing, code control, that sort of thing. Do you need to embrace those to take the data product approach, and why? If so, why?
Yes, you need, because the data product approach is requiring a standardization across the entire company and across the entire enterprise. But it's not a standardization about the data itself. It's a standardization about the way of working, how people are generating the software that then will generate the data inside the company. In order to decentralize the ownership of the data and the life cycle of data products, this standardization is needed. And this is the same kind of standardization that has been required in the software industry when the code base was growing and growing along the 90s and the 20s and so on. Now we have the same problem with the data. No, there is an explosion of data across all the departments of a large enterprise, and we need to keep this explosion of data under control. So the best way to do it is not to control the data itself, but to control the process to generate the data. So, for example, in software, we introduced the definition of done. Did you do the unit testing? Did you do the integration testing? Did you document the software? All this stuff is to check the human behavior, not to check the software behavior. Okay. In the data, we need to do the same. Did you do the metadata curation? Did you do the data quality implementation, GDPR, data deletion? All these stuff are things that people need to do in order to be compliant with the definition of done of the company. So that's why I think it's really necessary to go in that direction, to standardize people are working, and the same is happening with dashboard. I think you can confirm that analytics are basically going in the same direction.
Yeah, we see this. We see this in a major way among our customers and just in analytics in general, that the embrace of these software engineering techniques. The idea that I like how you phrased the definition of done, because I think the definition of done traditionally in BI and analytics had a lot more to do with user acceptance testing and like, hey, we got a checklist from this executive or this department about what they wanted, and did we deliver what they wanted on the checklist? And then that was the definition of done. And what we're seeing now is kind of this shift in thinking towards both involving these ideas of, well, what counts as done, metadata curation and having done the appropriate tests from a technical side. And then also we see this embrace of product thinking in general, right? So this shift away from developing the checklist, and when we've developed the checklist, now we're done, to, okay, applying the principles of product thinking that come out of software engineering and saying, instead of just doing the checklist that we got from our users, we're going to go a step further, try to understand their end goals, deliver an MVP, measure the success of the MVP, and be willing to build from there. And that's a huge shift in analytics thinking, away from kind of this almost service department mindset where our goal is to churn through tickets and say, hey, we completed 100 requests this month, and that's our measure of success. Get away from that and get into more of the software product measure of success, which is about user engagement, right? And meeting user needs. And I think these software engineering principles that we've talked about, like, they work for that. They work in data. and they work in delivering analytics. And so there's no need for us to reinvent the wheel. And that's, I think we have a problem with that in data sometimes, is we think of ourselves as like this separate, oh, we're separate from the rest of tech, right? Exactly. And we're not separate from the rest of tech. And there's so many solved problems that we have in data that we can import the solutions from software engineering. And maybe they need to be tweaked a little bit, for what we do. Maybe metadata curation is a bigger and more important thing than what a software engineer would typically think about if you're making an app, a mobile app to serve some purpose. Yeah, we need to put our flavor on it, but we can learn those lessons. And what we see is that the end result of that is that data teams are able to deliver more at a higher quality. And quality is defined as both, is the data accurate, but also is it actually meeting the user needs, by embracing this process. And there's kind of a philosophical side to it, which is, what is done and are we building to user needs, and are we using the learnings from the software development lifecycle? And then there's the technical side to it, right? Do I have the right tools in place? Do I have code control? Can I manage the deployment of data products efficiently? And I think on both of those planes, what we have to show people today is all about that the integration we have between GoodData and Witboost.
Yep.
It's about the technical piece, but also this philosophical piece. How do you think differently about what you're building?
Yep. Also governance needs. For example, when you publish a new dashboard, you need to be compliant with user acceptance criteria from the business and so on, but you need to check if you apply the right row level, row filter and column masking, for example, if you are respecting the access control list of people that can really see those dashboards, because we come from the era of self-service BI, where basically it was completely out of control from a governance standpoint. Very good for the business, but completely out of control. So everybody accessing everything. So we need to balance governance with autonomy from a business standpoint. So on one side, we need to provide autonomy to the business to reach their goal, but on the other side, we don't want to fold on governance and security and all this stuff. So we need to create a good balance between these two.
Yeah, I agree completely. And we see that as well. The pendulum swing away from total Wild West BI and analytics, where all that's important is time to value. I think a lot of people really embrace that. And, this model of, hey, we're going to give every analyst is going to have a BI tool on their desktop and like they're just going to be able to do whatever. And there are some advantages to that because you can produce a lot of analytics content quickly. But the disadvantage to that is really becoming clear, which is the total loss of control and quality and these assurances that the content that's produced is accurate and follows our data governance guidelines and meets regulatory requirements and all of that sort of stuff. I think what we're finding is that, by embracing this data product approach and these software engineering principles, you really can now have a good middle ground where your end users can build fast and you can still create content quickly, but you can have those assurances too. And that's ultimately what we're going to show today. So I think, let's shift into the talk about the integration itself that we've built between GoodData and Witboost. So let me just share my screen here. We'll take a look at kind of the integration architecture. And then Paolo, I think you're going to do a demo for us where we can actually see it in action.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, here is the interaction diagram between different personas and the tool. So on one side, we have the data product management as the entire set of components that you need to have in your data product. So the storage, the data transformation, policies, and whatever, and including also the output port. So we can consider the GoodData dashboard that has an output port of a specific data product, for example. And Witboost is taking care of automating the life cycle of this dashboard. So when you publish a new release of a data product that is including both Snowflake tables, for example, and GoodData dashboard, Witboost is taking care that this change management is happening at the same time with the same life cycle. So we don't have misalignment between the data sources and the dashboard, for example, is helping you to move this dashboard from a development environment to a production environment without remaking completely the dashboard in a different environment, and so many other aspects. So Witboost in some way is putting in automation and operation the life cycle of the dashboards. And at the same time, we can create a data product marketplace where you will have the link to the specific dashboard. So you can drill down from the entire landscape of data products in your company, going into a specific data product, and then from there, jump into GoodData and look at the real data produced by the dashboard. And from a consumer standpoint, this is more or less the journey. All this stuff without changing in any way the development experience. So who is developing the dashboards is developing them in GoodData with all the facilities that you provide. So keeping the development experience native, we can anyway create a life cycle on top of this that is standardized across the entire organization.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask a question. There's a question from chat that I wanted to ask while we're at this point before we jump to the demo. But can you explain more about this idea of a data product marketplace? Like how does that work in Witboost, and how do users interact with it?
Data product marketplace is we can consider it the Amazon of your data products in your organization, where you have a very high level and business oriented view of your data products. So it's not a data asset inventory. It's a more business oriented discovery plane for your data products, where you can also request the access to a specific data product and do other kind of things that if we will have time, I can show. But it's very different from a data asset inventory because it's not cataloging the entire set of information you have in your database or in your storages, but is just putting in evidence those data products that are well-defined, fully compliant, and production ready for the organization. So, for example, we are not exposing staging areas or internal transformation areas, all those tables. If you pick up a data lake or a data warehouse, probably less than 10% of the tables are really shoppable by an end user. So we focus only on that part that is shoppable by an end user without any kind of other technical stuff in between.
Gotcha. Awesome. All right. So let's, why don't we jump into the demo here? And so I'll stop sharing my screen, and Paolo, you can share yours. While we're making that transition, as a reminder, we are going to do a Q&A at the end here. So get your questions into the chat. We will make sure to answer them live if we can. If not, we will get them answered to you in email afterwards. So do get them in. All right, Paolo, take it away.
Okay, good. So now we will try to create an output port with GoodData, attaching it to an existing data product. So now I'm using the GoodData template that is part of the integration that we built together. And I'm going to create some dashboard for healthcare domain, and I'm putting in the hospitalization data products. In this data product, I have already some Snowflake. So now I can define a dependency on the Snowflake output port. I can add the tag and do other things that I think are not important. And we can inherit the schema directly from Snowflake, okay? So this will automate deeply the creation of the data source in GoodData and many other things. Okay, so now we can put hospitalization BI also here, and here we go. And now we are adding the GoodData output port into the data product of hospitalization. In the meantime, we can see that in GoodData, we don't have data sources regarding the hospitalization. We don't have workspaces regarding hospitalization. So we will create everything from scratch. Now, the initialization of this output port has been created, and we can check our data product. So this is the builder of Witboost, where you can control all the components. So as you can see here, we have some storage with Snowflake. We have an output port that basically has been implemented as a view. And then now we have this new component that is the dashboard that we are going to create. And if we look at this, this is the structure of our data product. And we will deploy this in the development environment. So we want to create a sandbox to develop this dashboard, because at the moment we didn't create basically nothing, just a Git repository. And now we are going to create a new release. Because every time I'm changing or adding a component to my data product, I need to create a new release of the data product itself. I'm targeting the development environment, so now I can start the deployment.
So at this point, so like the data product at this point, if someone were to say, what is the data product? Correct me if I'm wrong, but right now it's like the Snowflake database and schema in combination with the GoodData analytics environment and any objects we build in there. Holistically, all of that stuff is the data product. And that's the big difference. When you say, okay, the traditional approach is I'm cataloging some tables. Here we have kind of a collection of assets that are bundled together for a business purpose. And that's what someone is finding when they go into the data product marketplace.
Yeah, exactly. And now I'm not showing you other components, but if we go in a blueprint of Witboost, for example, this is the blueprint. And if we select this hospitalization data product, we can see that potentially we could include in the data product also DBT and ingestion workloads, because all these can be part of the data product. It should be part, but now for simplicity, we are going to focus on Snowflake and GoodData. So when I want to deploy in the development environment this, it is recognizing that GoodData, the hospitalization BI, is not deployed. Instead, the Snowflake one is already deployed. So now I'm going to deploy basically the entire data products. On Snowflake, it will do nothing, but instead on GoodData, is going to create the sandbox where we can develop the dashboard.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's done this stuff, has been in the industry for a while, should recognize at this point that what Witboost and GoodData are doing together is traditionally an enormous amount of manual work.
Yeah. And now the deployment is going to succeed, I hope, yes. So now if we look what happened in GoodData, we have a new data source. So this data source has been created automatically, is already connected to the Snowflake database that we have in the data product. So we are restricting the visibility of this dashboard and this workspace only to that database. And we have a new workspace. As you can see, this is a workspace for development. Okay, so I can open, and obviously this workspace is empty at the moment. So we have no dashboard and nothing. So we can start from the data that instead is already visible. I can change something here. For example, I can picking up this one and I can add some number. Okay. Okay, so I can refine the data model directly in GoodData.
Now, in this integration, is it able to import the Snowflake metadata? Like
Yeah.
it creates, so just, it's a simple example, but just so that everybody understands, all the data, like whatever you have defined in the Snowflake schema, we use that metadata to automatically build your data model in GoodData.
Yeah, exactly. So without doing anything, it imported automatically the data model of Snowflake into GoodData, and immediately we can start to craft a dashboard and whatever. Now I will not spend too much visualizations. And then maybe we can create a dashboard too, using this visualization and this here. Okay, so now we created this very, very simple dashboard, but we are in the development environment. So if we want to move this in production, we need to go through the life cycle of a formal release in production. So we can go back here in Witboost, going in my data product, going in my component, and I can bring what I built in GoodData, I can bring it back in my Git repository. This is very important because if we want to have a DevOps first approach in releasing artifacts, obviously we need to bring the dashboard in the Git repository and then run our normal CI/CD pipelines and whatever. So here on the hospitalization BI, I will do the import. I need to collect the workspace ID that is here. So I put the workspace ID here, and I'm going to import all the metadata coming from the dashboard, from what I implemented through the UI, making it Git ready to have proper versioning of this dashboard. And this is the result. So this is how the GoodData API are helping you to create a describing mechanism for your BI. So we can say that is a dashboard as code or something like that, I guess. So here everything we did in the UI has been downloaded as a YAML file. Okay. So now we bring in our repository. So Witboost is managing the committing and all those stuff in compliance with your Git flow. Okay, so as you can see now in the data product descriptor, we have all the information regarding the dashboard that we built. So we are ready to start our CI/CD and do a deployment. So if I now target production, Witboost is recalculating the descriptor, substituting all the environment variables, because maybe when you change from development to production, you need to change the pointer to the data. And we can run a test against the compliance policies. So this is a set of governance rules that will be applied to all the metadata. So we don't have a red flag. We have some warnings, but it's fine. This is possible to configure in Witboost, but we are not going to deep dive on it. And now we can try to deploy this dashboard in production. So we are going here. We are going to create a new release. So we are going to update the release with the new change that we bring into the picture. Under the hood, Witboost is applying all the tags on the Git repository to have a consistent versioning and whatever. We can promote to release. Okay. And now we target the deployment in production. Let's go. As you can see, in production, we have already Snowflake, but we don't have GoodData. So we can do the deployment. Now we have just a bunch of warning because the first step is to evaluate again all the computational policies. So if the metadata are there, if the user filters are there, and so on. And this is going to complete. So now we are going to check also in the marketplace what happened. So we can see how to move from the marketplace to GoodData. So we view in marketplace. This is the data product page. Okay. And now we can see that we have the dashboard as part of the data product. In the marketplace, you can discover data products visually. So if we focus on healthcare, our hospitalization, it will be there. Or you can search the data products. Now, I have already in my recently visited. And if I jump into the hospitalization BI, we can check that we have a link to the GoodData dashboard. So for an end user that is discovering what data is available in the organization, then it's possible to jump directly in GoodData. And as you can see, this is the production dashboard. It's not anymore the previous one. So we created a new dashboard in a new environment, a new workspace with different visibility, with different access rules. So now we have the workspace for development and the workspace for production. And this is how we can automate the lifecycle in a DevOps-friendly way of dashboard, thanks to the integration that we developed.
Yeah, that was awesome, by the way. Very cool. And this is, I think it's what we were talking about earlier about the automation and the power of these automations and kind of embracing this software engineering approach to managing your data and your analytics as a whole. There were a couple questions that came in. So first of all, how easy was it for you to build this integration with GoodData?
I think thanks to the very API first mindset of GoodData, it's not so common to find a BI tool, let's say, with a very API first mindset. It was pretty straightforward. I guess the integration in total required a couple of weeks, no more. And now the integration is available in the starter kit of Witboost. So it's an open source integration. You can also check the amount of work that that is necessary to reach this result. I don't remember where is it. GoodData is it here. Yeah. So this is an open source integration that we released. So yeah, couple of weeks and you get this kind of level of automation and integration end to end.
Yeah. So we have one question here, and we'll transition into the Q&A portion at this point. So, you know, if you have a question, there are a few in the chat. Thank you for those of you who have dropped questions into the Q&A section here on Zoom. If you have questions about anything you've seen or anything we've talked about, get them in. We'll answer them. So there's just one question. It's why is semantics or a metadata layer important for governance?
Semantic and metadata layers is super important for making the data understandable from a broader standpoint, for a broader audience, and also to connect the data with business concept and with business needs. So it's super important to create a semantic layer. Witboost, the integration with GoodData also is propagating all the metadata that you put on Snowflake, for example, but it could be also another technology. It's not coupled with Snowflake, but whenever you document your output ports, this metadata will be propagated also in the model in GoodData. So this is making far way easier for people that need to build the reporting to understand what data they are facing. I can show you how we manage this part. So we have the possibility to create the business metadata, the semantic layer, and the linking with the knowledge graph or the business glossary directly from Witboost. And then when you go through the deployment, we can check with a computational policy if the metadata linking has been done. And if you don't provide the business description, the metadata linking, and whatever, you don't pass the deployment stage. So this is a way to make this fully mandatory for everybody that want to go in production. As you can see, we have a ontology check, metadata compliance. All these rules are automatically checking if this step has been done. Then obviously you need to do it also in a very good way to augment the understanding of your data. But I think in dashboarding, it's exactly the same, because you need to understand what you are representing in your visualization.
Yeah, yeah, and I would just second that. I mean, it's having that metadata is what drives all of this automation. Without the metadata, and it's awesome to see that Witboost kind of has those controls in place to say, no, you're actually required to provide this metadata, because without it, none of what we've shown so far works, right? Without the schema metadata, we can't import it into GoodData and create the logical data model automatically for you. Simple example, right? But there's like the integration that we've built goes deeper than that. For example, if you add, if you have metadata related to descriptions of fields or tables or something like that, we can import that into GoodData too, so that your end users can see. They can look at a calculation and get the description of what the calculation is, or look at a visualization and get the description of what the visualization is supposed to represent, as a simple example, as well. And without the metadata, like none of what we've talked about or shown is really possible. It's super crucial. And it's also crucial, I would add in, as we move into kind of the AI era, AIs need this metadata to understand anything and to be able to answer questions accurately, right? This metadata is the business context that a large language model will interpret to be able to more accurately answer user questions.
Yeah, AI activation is strongly depending on the presence of this semantic layer and semantic information. So that's why we enforce the production of this before the data is in production. Because where data catalogs are falling behind, in my opinion, is this reactivity. So you have the data in production, and then someone else needs to take care of metadata curation. But the data is already there. The project is finished, and the practical result has been achieved. So maybe it will require a lot of time before metadata will be in place. Instead, here we are anticipating the production of this metadata. Otherwise, you don't go in production. This is definition of done. To go in production, you need to have the metadata.
Yeah. We have a question here from Anthony. He asks, does Witboost support development of an automated test suite per deployment environment? This is a long question, which continuously confirms the availability, configuration, of critical content and good data, dashboards, visualizations. It confirms that they meet the expectations or requirements for each environment. If I had to sum this up, I would say, what is automated? And we have a few questions around automated testing or unit testing. What does that look like in Witboost? And that's part one of the question. And part two is that a continuous thing, or is it only doing those checks on deployment?
Basically, it's a service. So if you want to wire in your CI/CD, it can become continuous. Otherwise, if you want to do the deployment as I showed through the button, let's say, but that's for demo purposes. Let's say that's only at deploy time. Then we have the monitoring at runtime. So, for example, I don't have an example on dashboard, but we have the data contract monitoring, for example. So there is the possibility to create agent, inject those agents to check if the contract that have been defined is really respected at runtime. So continuously during the life cycle of the data. So regarding the consistency between data and dashboard and so on, from a technical standpoint, is possible to do it in Witboost. Regarding the consistency between the dashboard and the business requirement, instead is more, obviously, is more tricky, and it requires, I guess, at this stage, human approval. But the good part is that in Witboost, you can write these policies with the coding. So you can develop a microservice, for example, and you can embed LLM and generative AI in these policies. So you can have a policy powered by ChatGPT, OpenAI, and whatever you want. So it's really pluggable, the engine to monitor what people are building.
And we have a question here from Merrick. How do we manage the life cycle of individual components? For example, if you change the configuration of an insight or a metric that's reused across multiple dashboards. So if I drill into this question a little bit, I think, we kind of saw versioning of a dashboard within Witboost and the integration of that as a data product. But can the individual components, do those live as kind of separate objects in Witboost? If I have a metric defined that's in 10 dashboards, can I control that metric as an independent object in Witboost?
You can control all the components as independent objects. So, for example, now I'm enabling the policy to check a breaking change. And this is a classic example. If I have a table in Snowflake, and then I have hundreds of dashboards depending on that table, I can check if someone is going to apply a change on that table. So if we look at this hospitalization, for example, if we consider to have this Snowflake storage and then multiple dashboards attached to them, when you are going to deploy the data product, this now is going to test if you are going to do a breaking change. Now, obviously, I'm not applying any modification, so the breaking change is succeeding. But in case you modify the schema of this table, maybe removing a column or renaming a column or whatever, this will block this change. So it will not possible to go in production because you are doing a breaking change. And Witboost knows that there are dashboards depending on this table. So that's the way we work on the change management process. Gotcha. We don't want to discover after the facts that a table has changed.
And then final question here. This is from Jenny. Who is ideally doing the metadata curation? Is it a developer? Is it a business or data owner or a data steward or who? And I think actually the answer is probably it depends, but who, who's ideally doing this?
It depends on your operating model, your organization model. So in Witboost, the important fact is that the metadata curation will be done before the deployment. Then who will do it is not a big problem, because everybody with the right permission can jump into this data product and check and modify the metadata. For example, now I don't have metadata here, but you can do the editing directly here. So it's very easy. It can be done by a developer if they have the business knowledge. Typically, they don't. But if you are bringing into the picture a data steward, a business stakeholder, or whatever, asking to do this metadata curation, because this is blocking the go live. So there's no other chance that bringing someone into the topic and make them doing the metadata curation properly before going live. But with the right permission set, it's possible to onboard whatever kind of user.
Yeah, I think I think the way I would think about this, Jenny, is there was recently a book published called Humanizing Data Strategy by Tian-Kai Feng, which is a fascinating book. And in it, he talks about this idea of moving away from centralization, thinking about centralization versus self-service, and instead moving into an era of thinking about co-creation, right? That there's like kind of a shared responsibility between data and business teams to build together the the data products and in this case the metadata. And I think that's that's the way to think about it in my mind. It's a collaborative, co-creative process to build and maintain these things. I would encourage you to check out Tian-Kai's book too. It's pretty cool. Okay. Any final? Go ahead, Paolo.
I mean, we need to consider that without the business knowledge, it's not possible to develop the business logic as well. So somewhere the business knowledge must be there. We just need to bring those people to collaborate deeply in the same workspace to make this effective and to create a proper data product.
Gotcha. All right. So we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody who joined us today and the great questions that you all put in. Jenny asks to repeat the book title. It's called Humanizing Data Strategy by Tian-Kai Feng. He talks a lot about some of the things that we addressed in today's topic, although it's at it's a pretty high level and anyway, it's an interesting book. All right. So I want to thank you all for attending and getting the great questions in. As a reminder, we will provide a recording of this webinar via email in a couple days, so you'll have access to this. Share it with your friends. Don't keep it a secret. And I want to thank you, Paolo, for joining us, and also for the awesome integration that you guys built between Witboost and GoodData. I think it really is an excellent example of what's possible when you have the right tools and you embrace this data product engineering mindset with your analytics, the types of things you can do that you couldn't do in the past to make your job easier, and the things that you build better. And that's ultimately what this is all about. So thank you, Paolo, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.